Choosing Love by ginnyrules27, Chapter 21. And before I get started, this is a long and intense chapter, and I'm actually recording it in advance because I needed to do this early. Ben sighed softly as he led the way to his dorm room, accompanied by Mal, Uma, and Lady Persephone. In all honesty, Ben had no idea what was going to happen, but knew he needed to have a talk with his girlfriend. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Uma break off and head in the direction of the room she shared with Evie and Mal.
She's either going to get Harry and Jay, or she's going to get the newspaper she talked about,
he thought with an inward nod of his head.
Hopefully it's the latter. As much as I know Mal loves her friends, she won't want too big of an audience for the talk we're going to have. Something tells me it'll be an emotional one, and Mal's not big on showing her feelings.
Thankfully, his room was just as spotless as it had been when he left that morning. He didn't know why he expected anything different, but then again, considering who he had as friends, anything was possible.
Lady Persephone, would you like the chair?
Ben offered as he held open the door for his girlfriend and his girlfriend's mother to walk through. His desk chair was probably the most uncomfortable chair ever made, but it was the best thing in his dorm room he could offer that wasn't the bed. Ironic considering he was the king, but he spent more time in his office than he did in his dorm anyway. No, thank you, King Ben. Persephone shook her head. I'd like to stay with my daughter if possible.
Of course. I thought you might prefer... The chair might have been more comfortable.
Ben, Mum's not going to smite you for offering a bed as a place to sit, Mal said softly, and Ben couldn't help but smile slightly.
At least she was talking. That was a good start.
But, Mum, as much as I love the fact that you're here, aren't you going to get in trouble with old Lightning Bud? Zeus can worry about the agreement when he wants to actually provide a good agreement for a mother of two who has a daughter who needs her, Persephone stated as she sat down on the edge of the bed, holding Mal close to her. King Ben was kind enough to provide a car, and Zeus can't really get upset if I came on behest of the king, now can he? You've been around Dad too much if you can list a loophole that quickly, Mal told her, but didn't put up any resistance to her mother's embrace. When you become a parent, Mally, you'll learn that you'll do whatever it takes to make sure your kids know you're there for them, Persephone said gently, brushing a bit of hair out of Mal's face. Ben tilted his head slightly as he looked in Mal's eyes. Did they seem a bit brighter than usual? He didn't mean brighter because of the tears in her eyes, but the shade of green in her eyes. He didn't know how he hadn't noticed it before, but it was like they were back to the shade of green he loved so much. It was almost as if a tiny part of his Mal was breaking through.
Mal, what's going on?
Ben asked, his voice soft. It's nothing, Ben. Mal shook her head as Uma slipped into the room, unnoticed by all but Ben. His second assumption turned out to be the correct one, as she had her arms loaded with newspapers, or at least what passed for newspapers considering they were all the Gazelle. Everyone at Oridon Prep knew that the only thing the Gazelle was good for was for a fire starter, or at least something for a dog to use the bathroom on if they went inside. Well, anyone with any sense, that is. Ben would never give Estelle a copy of that trash to do his business on.
Yeah, okay, Uma scoffed, setting the newspapers down on Ben's desk. That's why you haven't done any spray painting or worn anything with dragons on it for months now. Because, what? You just felt like it?
Uma, what does it matter? Besides, it's not like I have any time for drawing anyway. Let alone spray painting, Mal sighed before looking at her watch. She was definitely late for her Natalie meeting. Speaking of not having time for things, unfortunately I have to run. Nice talking to you, and it was great seeing you again, Mum. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Hold it, young lady, Persephone said as Ben gently grabbed her arm, as Mal went to give him a kiss on the cheek. Ben, what are you doing? Mal asked, looking over at him in slight confusion, before looking over at her mum as her words had only just begun to sink in. Mum? We have to have a talk, Persephone stated. You say you're fine, Mal, but people who are fine don't run into their mother's arms sobbing upon seeing them. I just missed you, that's all, Mal said with a sigh. Uh-huh, Persephone nodded, though Ben could clearly tell from the look on her face that she was not buying what Mal was trying to sell. Mum, I really have to get going.
Not today, you don't,
Ben said gently, but if one was listening closely, they might have heard a hint of firmness in the king's voice. Mal raised an eyebrow and pulled her arm out of his grip. Seriously?
Mal, what is going on with you?
Uma thought, as she could see a small flash of hurt go through Ben's eyes at her actions. Don't look at me like that, Uma.
Look at you like what?
Like I'm snapping.
How should I be looking at you then? At the very least, you're being grouchy, Mal. We're just trying to help.
I'm fine, Uma, Mal said as she rolled her eyes. I'm not grouchy.
You are not fine.
Okay, so I've been a little busy. Sue me.
That is not an option,
Ben said, quickly interjecting as Uma opened her mouth. Mal shook her head. So, we talked. Can I go now?
No!
Uma exclaimed. And why not? Because this isn't healthy, Mal. Mal shrugged. I managed. It's just a few extra meetings on top of school stuff.
You're glued to your phone.
I'm not glued to my phone. I have to answer calls, Uma. It's normal.
Mal, if you're not on your phone, then you're rushing to a meeting or scurrying over to Blueberry for a fitting. It's not normal.
Mal sighed and rolled her eyes slightly.
Mal, please, talk to me,
Ben said gently, going back to his chair, as to not make Mal feel like she was being trapped.
What's going on in your head, Dragon?
Ben, I asked you not to use that, Mal exclaimed, her eyes going wide in shock. If Ben was just going to disregard her request like that, then she'd never be free of people comparing her to the dragon. Even if there was a small part of her that liked the fact that Ben had disregarded her request. She loved hearing him call her dragon. It meant something different coming from him.
You said it was fine in private,
Ben said with a small shrug. Does being in my room with my mother and my cousin count as being in private to you?
Ben sighed. See, that's what I mean. You've asked me to not use it, but I don't know why. You've never had an issue with it. You love dragons.
I changed, Mal said, her voice flat.
Why?
Mal sighed. Ben, it's not important, okay? Just no more dragon nickname. Please. Ben couldn't help but bite his lip. He'd be happy to give her the world, but this was one thing he didn't want to give up. Not because of the nickname, but because of what it represented. Mal was as wild, as free, as protective of any of the dragons in the books he had read. She was a dragon in human form. And that was just one of the many things he loved about her. Mal, the fact that you're insistent on this makes me think that it is important, Persephone said gently. Remember when you were 8? What did I tell you about dragons then? That just because I liked dragons, it didn't make me connected to Maleficent, Mal said, her voice soft. That dragons were often considered a godly symbol.
Exactly, Uma nodded, giving her aunt a small smile. Thank gods we brought her in, otherwise we'd be beating our heads against a wall. Mal is nothing but stubborn. But luckily, so am I. Dragons are kinda your thing, Mal. Or at least they were until something changed. But you won't tell me what it was. It can't just be the stupid idiots out the gazelle.
Uma, just drop it, okay? It's nothing, alright? If I don't go now, we're going to be treated to Natalie blowing up my phone. Why would this Natalie blow up your phone? Persephone asked. On that note, who is Natalie? I thought I knew all of your friends, Mal. Unless this one is from Oridon. She's not a friend. Mal sighed, looking at her mum. She's my handler. Why on Gaia's green earth would anyone think you need to be handled? Persephone asked, her eyes flashing.
There were some on my council who thought it might help Mal in navigating the royal life,
Ben said, His voice small as Persephone glared over at him.
I was not one of them.
Considering the status your mother had all her life, before marrying your father, I should hope so. For that matter, I've been working with Mal on navigating life in Oridon, just in a manner that would also help us survive the Isle.
It's true, Uma nodded. Aunt Steph was a big help in learning diplomacy and all that stuff that a captain of the seas needs to know. Probably comes from having to deal with Zeus for 6 months.
Ben, though, frowned at the rest of Mal's statement rang in his head.
You're allowed free time, Mal. I don't understand why Natalie would be blowing up your phone. Unless... Hang on. Mal, Natalie's not the reason you don't want to be called Dragon anymore, is it?
Ben, I have to go, Mal told him, and Ben's heart broke at hearing the plea in her voice.
Mal, please,
he said softly, getting up from his chair and walking over to her, gently cupping her cheeks with his palm.
You're with me. What's Natalie going to do? Talk to me.
Ben, Mal said softly, looking up at him, and Ben could see the pain and the pure exhaustion she somehow managed to hide shining through. What do you want me to say?
I want you to tell me why you want nothing to do with something you love anymore.
Ben told her, his hand still cupping her cheek. I can't, Mal said softly, her voice near a whisper.
Why not?
Ben asked, keeping his voice gentle, even though every cell in his body was vibrating with rage. Not towards Mal, though. Never toward Mal. How had he missed this? How had he missed Natalie turning Mal from the most confident and self-assured girl he knew to someone he barely recognized? To someone who looked like she expected a punishment from him for doing something wrong? The looks he was getting from Mal's mum and cousin both said the same thing. Fix this or I will. Ben wasn't sure he wanted to know how they would fix it. Something told him that it would involve Natalie turning into a plant of some kind. Maybe an underwater one if aunt and niece teamed up. I just can't! Mal snapped, bringing Ben's focus back to the matter at hand, as he watched as her eyes flashed bright green before fading back to their normal shade. Because maybe, Ben, I don't want you to realise you're potentially dating the next version of Maleficent like the rest of the kingdom already knows. She slapped a hand over her mouth, clearly having said more than she wanted to.
What do you mean the next Maleficent?
Ben asked, his voice soft as he gently moved Mal's hand from her mouth. He never wanted her to silence herself. Not around him. Not ever.
You're nothing like Maleficent.
Maleficent could turn into a dragon, Ben, Mal said softly. She's what people think of when they think of dragons. If I have to give up dragons to distance myself from her, I'm fine doing that. They're only clothes and pictures. They're not important. Ben couldn't help but look at Mal in shock, and he knew that Uma was doing the same thing. Even though he figured the cousins had had a talk before Uma brought Mal to his office, he didn't know what that consisted of. What Mal had told Uma, if anything. What? Mal asked softly, noticing the shocked looks. Ben, your safety's more important. If the kingdom thought you were spelled or something because you were dating the next Maleficent... Melinda! Yes, Mum? Mal asked, looking over at her mother. You are not the next Maleficent, Persephone said firmly. I seem to remember you standing up against Maleficent at the battle at King Ben's coronation. Mal sighed. Mum, it doesn't matter. I'm still genetically connected to the dragon, even if I know you're my mum. All anyone will see is a copy of Maleficent because you can change everything about yourself, but you can't change genetics. Ben honestly lost count
at how many times his heart broke during this talk, but it broke again as he saw tears beginning to form at the corner of Mal's eyes. You are not a copy, he whispered, scooping Mal into his arms and holding her close. If you were, you wouldn't have stopped Evie from stealing Fairy Godmother's wand. You wouldn't care so much about your friends. Hell, you wouldn't have cared about why Evie did what she did, and you certainly wouldn't care about my safety in all of this. Mal sniffed softly as she buried her head into Ben's shoulders. Hey, Ben said gently, putting his hand on Mal's chin and gently raising it up so that he was looking her in the eye. You are Mal. You are one of a kind. You're a dragon-themed, spray-painting, pirate co-parenting girl who has no qualms about walking into my office to tell me I'm working too hard. You are not Maleficent. You are Melinda. And anyone who says otherwise is an idiot. Maleficent doesn't hold a monopoly on dragons. Just ask Lonnie about Mushu. Hell, I like dragons. Does that make me like Maleficent? No! Ben, you're nothing like Maleficent, Mal told him. Then why are you? Ben asked gently. You're doing the same as me. Admiring dragons for the animal they are, not for the person most of us think of. Ben, I'm genetically connected to her. Like it or not, there's no changing that. Mal, blood does not dictate family or personality, Ben said softly. Chip is my brother, even if we're not connected by one drop of blood. Hell, Amir and Akio are practically my brothers. The whole Tiny team is, actually. My father, before he was turned into a beast, was rude, shallow, and arrogant. I'll freely admit that. Am I any of those things? No. Then why should your genetics have anything to do with Maleficent? Ben asked. Persephone shook her head slightly as they waited for Mal to answer. Oh, sure, it's just the same thing I've been saying ever since we got Mal back from that witch. But what do I know? I'm just your mother. Gods help me when Hattie's a teenager. Uma walked over and gently rubbed her cousin's back, trying to convey to Mal that she wasn't alone, that there were people she could talk to, who could help her. I got you, Mally, she said softly. We're just trying to help. That's all. We can see you're not happy. Ruthless yet loyal, after all. I'm not letting my co-captain suffer needlessly. But nothing, Mally. What did you say to Harry when he was injured back when we were 9, and he was idiotically fighting our help? That was different, Uma. Harry was fighting getting medicine that would stop him from being in pain, Mal said softly. And we can clearly see that you're hurting too, and you're fighting our help, Uma said gently. Remember what Uncle Hades said? We don't leave family behind. Mal couldn't help but give her cousin a weak smile, which Uma and Ben eagerly returned. Unfortunately, Mal's phone rang at that moment, breaking the silence and the peace. Gods, a minute's peace. Is that too much to ask? Mal muttered as she broke away from Ben and answered the phone. Hi, Natalie. Yes, I know I'm late. I'm sorry, I don't care, Mal. Natalie's voice rang through clear as day, as Mal had accidentally pressed the speaker button in her haste to answer her phone. When will you get it into your ditzy brain that you can't goof off and keep missing meetings? My gods, the way you're going, I'm surprised King Ben isn't more embarrassed by you. Ben's eyes widened while Persephone's narrowed in anger. Uma's hands curled into fists with every word that came out of Natalie's mouth. I know. I'm really sorry, Natalie. I'll be right over, Mal said, and Uma looked over in shock. How long had this been going on for Mal to just sit back and take that kind of talking to? You know we'll have to go over your allotted time, and all your meetings are now going to run into each other. If you didn't have all of those hours blocked off for magic of all things, maybe I could be a bit more flexible with your schedule. But clearly you don't care about getting this right. Gods, what King Ben sees in a slacker like you, I'll never know.
I'm just glad you finally wised up and got rid of those stupid dragon clothes and leather. You should look like a lady, not a ruffian. Am I just wasting my time being your handler? Because I'd have thought that you would finally get some decent time management. Gods, a lady doesn't run late to meetings, Mal. Yes, Natalie, I know, and I appreciate what you're doing, Mal whispered.
Okay, that's it, Ben growled. I've heard enough.
Then if you don't kill her, I will, Oma snarled, rubbing Mal's back as Mal stared at her boyfriend in shock. Ben having grabbed the phone from her hand. Ben, don't! Melinda, it's either Ben has a talk with her, or I will have a talk with her, Persephone said. Granted, I'll be having a talk with her either way, but it might be better if Ben goes first. Mal sighed, but nodded.
Excuse me, Natalie. I don't believe abusing my girlfriend was part of your job description.
Ben growled. King Ben! Oh, hello, sire. How can I help you? Natalie asked, her voice clearly showing her shock at Ben's appearance in the call.
You can help me by telling me what in the world you were doing. As I said, I don't believe abusing my girlfriend was part of your job description. Calling her ditzy? Making her feel ashamed of everything she loves? Telling her that she is an embarrassment to me? Natalie, right now the only person whom I'm embarrassed by is the person who was appointed by my council who thinks it's okay to abuse a teenager.
Sire, if Miss Mal can't handle a little tough love, then she can tell me. But a lady, especially your lady, should look the part, and not, well, like a street rat from the aisle.
And how exactly is she supposed to do that when you don't even give her a chance to speak when you're berating her? If you don't let her speak for a minute, then you would have known that she was with me. That's why she was late. For that matter, how many meetings are you giving her that they run over and she has to give up her magic practice? Finally, Mal is from the aisle, Natalie. If she wants to wear whatever makes her comfortable, she can.
With you? But sire, we haven't had a meeting with you scheduled in her planner. Had I have known... Well, no matter. Mal should have been on time. We have gone over the importance of punctuality many times. I am honestly surprised she hasn't retained anything I have taught her. And honestly, sire, you don't need to trouble yourself with her schedule. That's why your council appointed me to Miss Mal's service, after all. And she may have been from the Isle, but she lives in Oridon. She should look the part.
My girlfriend doesn't need to be in a meeting with me, Ben exclaimed. And trouble myself? Natalie, you know that those hours are blocked off so Mal can practice her magic and ensure her health and safety. Those blocks of time are to be left alone. And frankly, Natalie, I don't care if Mal looks the part or not. If she wants to wear leather and dragons on it, she can.
Sire, I'm sorry, but if Mal keeps being late to meetings, there's only so much time in the day. The meetings we have scheduled are important as a lady of the court. And as your lady, sire. Mal's perfectly able to speak up if she feels overworked, but I don't see why she should. No one from Oridon wears leather, your highness. All it would do is remind everyone that she is from the Isle.
So we can't kill her, right?
Oma asked, looking back at Persephone, as Ben continued to go back and forth. I'm still toying with the possibility, Persephone stated. Hades has been providing suggestions as to her punishments through the mental link. Mum, don't, Mal said softly. All it would do is make people think being from the Isle's too dangerous, and advocate for permanently separating the two worlds. I couldn't live completely separated from you. And think about Haddie. He still needs his mum. Persephone sighed. All right, Mal. I won't smite her. Though I make no promises that your uncle won't at some point, if he ever finds out what Natalie did. Zeus didn't care when I was a baby. And Maleficent grabbed me. He doesn't care now. Mal scoffed, and Oma couldn't help but smirk a bit at seeing remnants of the old Mal come out. She was still in there, just buried deep down. Well, at the very least, your father will have fun judging her soul when the time comes. Persephone stated. He had a ball with Leah. I'm not surprised. Mal said, shaking her head in slight amusement. Speaking of your father, he wants you to talk to him, Persephone stated. And you're never muting your mental link again, young lady. If something's going on with you, I want to know. Persephone nodded. Yes, Mum. I'm sorry. At first I thought I could handle it. Or that Natalie just didn't like Uma for some reason. She kept encouraging me to spend time with Elle or Macaria. But then it was jabs about my clothing on top of all the Gazelle articles. And then Leah made a comment at her hearing, and it all just piled on top of each other. Plus, you were still on the Isle. I didn't want to make you worried since there was still time in your deal. Which is why I'll talk to Zeus about reworking the deal, Persephone stated. I won't leave your father to his lonesome, as that's not fair to him. But I won't leave you without someone to turn to. Mal smiled and went over to her mum, giving her a hug and thanks. It's the parents' job to protect the kids, Mally, not the other way around, Persephone said softly, returning the hug.
That's Lady Mal to you, Natalie.
Ben's voice broke through, and all three Olympians looked over in slight shock.
Don't think I haven't noticed that you're only addressing her politely when speaking to me. As the daughter of two gods, Mal's afforded the title by default, which is exactly why she has the blocks of time for her magic. And for the record, Natalie, the only expectations I have for my lady is that she is happy and healthy. The Isle is a part of her. It's where she's from. It's what made her the woman I love, and she shouldn't be made ashamed of that.
Mal gasped as she heard Ben's words, Persephone resting a hand on her shoulder. Ben loves me? Mal asked. I don't think you'd be going through all of this if he didn't, Persephone told her. But I don't think he remembered you were in the room. Do I have to say it back? Not if you're not ready. Though I do just want to say your cousin Aphrodite is going to be very smug about all of this. She had a bet with your cousin Hermes that Ben would be the first to say it. They bet on me and Ben? Immortal beings, Mal. We get bored very easily, Persephone said, shaking her head. Now, I think it's time I have some words with this Natalie. She caught Ben's eye and held out her hand for the phone. Ben nodded.
Natalie, I will be continuing this conversation. But for right now, Mal's mother would like a word with you,
Ben said, his voice still near a growl.
I hope for your sake you don't insult Mal the same way you have done with me, because you will be extremely lucky if you still hold a job at the end of this phone call.
Ben handed over the phone, and Mal shook her head, going over to him as to provide her mum some privacy for the call. You didn't have to do that, she said softly.
She was berating you and making you feel ashamed for the things you love,
Ben said.
I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Mal gave him a small smile. Speaking of things that was said...
Oh, yeah, that. That wasn't the way I wanted to tell you,
Ben said softly.
But it doesn't change the fact that I do love you with all my heart, Mal. I'm not looking for you to say it back. I know life is different on the Isle. Harry and Uma have told me multiple times. But I just wanted you to know, and for you to know that I would do anything for you.
Mal gave him another smile and rested her head on his shoulder. Ben, as long as we're truth-telling, I should tell you. I've been ducking out of lunch and dinner early to get more magic practice in.
Well, that's not going to be a problem anymore, because you'll have your time, Ben promised. As for food, well, after this call, I know there's a picnic being set up by our friends that I'll have everything you want.
Strawberries?
I guarantee it.
Ben nodded as he quickly slipped out his phone and sent a quick text to Amir to guarantee the appearance of the fruit. Ooh, Benny, can I rush down to the kitchen and make some hush puppies for the picnic? Yeah, Ben, can she? Mal nodded. Ben couldn't help but chuckle.
Of course. Tell the kitchen staff you have my permission if they ask.
Uma nodded and smirked slightly as she left. Oh, she'd make the hush puppies, but she needed to pick something else up first. Oh no, Natalie. Persephone stated, pulling Ben and Mal's attention back to the phone call, and Mal realised that her mother hadn't actually taken a break at any point during that call. You don't seem to understand. You don't look at Mal. You don't talk to Mal. You don't breathe around Mal. If you do, King Ben will be the least of your worries. Do you not think Mal has an entire mountain of gods waiting to act on her behalf? The only reason you're not being smited or turned into a mint plant or a spider or a bull or a tree or a bear or anything else is because Mal asked me not to. However, that doesn't mean I won't have a bit of revenge, even if it is less than what you deserve. Mal watched as her mother's hands glowed bright before fading again. I'm sure you're wondering what I just did, Persephone stated. Enjoy trying to grow a garden again, Natalie. I'm sure you won't take long to wonder as to why everything you touch dies.
That is an oddly appropriate punishment, Ben thought. After all, Lord Hades is the god of the dead, and Lady Persephone is the goddess of vegetation. And with her mother being the goddess of agriculture. Still, now it's my turn. Hello again, Natalie, Ben said as Persephone handed the phone back. You're fired. That's right, fired. You have an hour to clear out your quarters, and if you're still here after that, you'll be arrested for trespassing.
Yes, sire.
Oh, Natalie, don't expect any recommendations from the castle for your next employer. Well, don't expect any good recommendations. We'll be happy to provide truthful ones, though.
Ben hung up the call and handed Mal back her phone.
Now, how about that picnic?
I'll leave you to that, Persephone stated. I'm sure your driver is anxious to get me back to the Isle. Ben shook his head.
Lady Persephone, your invitation here is for as long as Mal wants you. I would never assume otherwise.
That is very kind, King Ben. But my husband shouldn't be left to his own devices for too long. You'll see Haddie, right? Mal spoke up. He'll be devastated if he knew that you'd been here and didn't get a chance to see you, Mum. He misses you. Mal smiled. If you want me to stay, Mal, of course I will. Hopefully your father won't go completely insane. Dad lasted without you completely on his own before I was born, Mal pointed out. Not to mention the 5 years when Beneficent had me full time. She sighed. It'd be nice if Dad could be here too, but something tells me that's almost impossible.
Nothing's impossible, Ben promised. Once the kids are off the Isle, I can look into getting some of the adults who don't belong off there as well.
Mal stared at him in shock. Ben, are you serious?
As a heart attack.
That is a very generous offer, King Ben, Persephone said with a small smile, and one I'll be happy to talk to my husband about. But for right now, if you don't mind, I need to go and yell at a few gods. Oh, try to film so Uma and I can see, Mal said with a grin. Oh, of course, Mal, Persephone chuckled before leaving in a swirl of leaves. Ben stared in shock.
Can you do that?
Dunno, never tried, Mal told him. Dad can do it too, but the Isle makes it impossible. But you said something about a picnic?
Ben grinned and held out his arm. Right this way, my lady.
Oh, I thought we agreed to no titles, Your Highness. Mal teased, and Ben's smile got even bigger at that. They made their way to the tree grove near the tourney field, where the tourney team had set up an elaborate spread of different sandwiches, bags of chips, strawberries, blueberries, 2 different types of coleslaw, and a strawberry rhubarb pie. Ben couldn't be sure, but he thought he also saw a box of Queen Tiana's beignets near the back, along with some cookies that could have been made by Queen Rapunzel.
I have questions, Ben said, staring at the spread in shock. First one being, how did you pull this off so fast? You left us to our own devices, Ben, Jay stated. Uma let us know that she was making hush puppies, so she'll be here later. Where are the newspapers? Back in my dorm, Ben said, tilting his head in shock. Carlos, go fetch.
Ha! Carlos shook his head before running off to get them. Akio chuckled before handing a plate of ham and cheese sandwiches, strawberries, and a bag of chips to Mal. I know it's not complete with a lack of hush puppies, but you're staring at that picnic like it was blessed from the gods. Thanks, Mal said, taking the plate and digging into the sandwich. Everyone else looked over at Ben, who just shook his head. He'd explain later, but he didn't want Mal to feel bad again. Not after Natalie's phone call. Don't tell me you all got started without me, Irma's voice said as she walked up, one hand holding a tray of hush puppies and another clutching a very familiar article of clothing. Woo! Just made it! Carlos exclaimed as he slid in. Newspapers present and accounted for. Mal furrowed her brow in confusion. Do you guys want to read those or something? Oh, hell no, Mal, Irma said, shaking her head. Well, did you bring the trash can? Right here, William said with a small smirk, holding it up. Great. Irma nodded and then looked over at Mal. You're going to put all of those quote-unquote newspapers in that trash can, and then you're going to bring up a fireball to incinerate them. No more hiding them under your mattress. Once they're ash, you're going to put this on. Irma held up the article of clothing that was under her arm, and Mal stared in shock to see that it was her jacket. Irma. I got you, Mally, Irma stated, and I know Natalie's been on you for who knows how long, so I know you won't be back to normal tomorrow. But you've got to start somewhere. Mal sighed and nodded softly, Ben gently rubbing her on the back. Carlos, give her the papers, Jay said, and Carlos handed Mal the newspapers. Everyone couldn't help but smirk as Mal dropped them unceremoniously and summoned a lilac-coloured fireball into the palm of her hand. Wait, Ben said, that trash can's fireproof, right? Of course, Will nodded. Uncle Hero designed it to prevent lab accidents. Of course, this is a prototype, so it might get a little damaged. And that's why we brought some water, Harry said. And we have someone skilled in water magic. Harry, I'm not skilled. Carpen, you're more skilled than the rest of us. Ben looked over at Mal, who just looked amused at the banter. Sod it off, Mal, he said gently. Mal grinned and lobbed the fireball into the trash can, embracing the warmth that washed over her body. Irma handed over her jacket, which Mal slipped on. There was something right about wearing the jacket again. Welcome back, Mal, Jay said. It's good to be back, Mal said softly as she began to dig into her sandwich. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one because I friggin' loved it. Ginny, you are a master. You really are. Oh God, all of that. I'm actually shaking. Oh, them doing that picnic. Ben saying that he loves her finally and telling her he doesn't expect an answer because she's not ready yet. And Uma saying that she doesn't have to go back to normal tomorrow. That she has time to heal. Oh my God. Yes! All of that, yes! I hope I got the emotion right, guys, because I actually recorded this early because of how badly this build-up has got to me. I'm going to listen to this back after every recording until I reach this chapter because I had to. I had to get to that early. Oh, God. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye, my guys, gals, and non-dino pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care, okay? Ginny, you are a wordsmith, you really are. Take care. Bye.